All right, welcome, spongy Bible brainers, to Beach Church in Virginia Beach, our daily Bible study tonight. This is Tuesday, the 7th of April, 2026. We're looking at the book of 2 Samuel, chapters 13, 14, and 15. Just again, some quick reminders about the books of Samuel. Samuel is that man of God that God used to establish kingship in Israel. And the events of the books reveal Israel being transformed from that loosely knit group of tribes under the judges into a united nation under the reign of a centralized monarchy or kings. And so it's through the work of the godly prophet Samuel and the young King David that the nation of Israel comes into being. And in 2 Samuel, things are going gangbusters for David, at least up through chapter 8. He becomes king over the tribe of Judah, and then he becomes king over all of Israel. He spends a few years of triumphal reigning, which includes a lot of military victories, a lot of wives, and a lot of children. But in chapter 9 begins his troubles when he commits adultery with Bathsheba and then murder in an attempt to cover it up. And it's pretty much downhill from there for David. And chapter 13 then reports about David's family troubles. It begins with the rape of Tamar by her half brother Amnon. And then his other brother, Absalom, murders Amnon. And then it follows with David's questionable mercy towards Absalom. And then, of course, the beginning of Absalom's rebellion against his father David, eventually forcing David to flee from his throne at the end of chapter 15. So, what can we say about all of this sordid and corrupt family activity for King David? If you were looking for a modern television equivalent, it would be the channel like the Lifetime Movie Network that specializes in true crime stories focused on murder, passion, and betrayal. There are actually currently 7 similar TV series about just marriages that end in death instead of divorce. Um, as the comedian Jim Gaffigan once quipped, if you're watching these shows, you would think that all marriages end in murder. Interestingly, the dramatization of David and his family problems has its own history, going as far back as 1912, when there was an early short silent film focused specifically on the conflicts between David and his rebellious son Absalom. And of course, through the years, Hollywood's produced another dozen movies about David. And you can jump to the 1990s when there was a TV miniseries covering his sin with Bathsheba and the subsequent family problems. And then more recently, just in 2025, YouTube's King David movie series and the much acclaimed Prime Video series House of David. And that last one's noted for its raw and emotional journey through David's life rather than just historical reenactment. So, needless to say, you won't see the Hallmark channel offering the life of King David anytime soon or ever. Now, it seems to me the common problem here is with people who focus on their feelings and passions, that is, their intense desire to get what they want and get it now, instead of focusing on God and God's prescriptive laws for a good and happy life. Just imagine if David had gone to war that spring instead of standing on his roof oogling Bathsheba while she took a bath, and then murdering her husband to try to cover up the adultery. Imagine if his son Amnon had followed God's law and simply requested Tamar in marriage and become a good husband. Imagine if Absalom had chosen a less passionate but godly response to the rape of his sister and not murdered his brother Amnon. Imagine if David had chosen his responsibility as king and to God's law over his love for his son. Imagine if Absalom had simply honored his father and mother throughout this entire episode. What a different story the history of Israel might have been. an entire 200 to 300 years of divided kingdom leading to the destruction of the nation and exile of its people might have been avoided. Well, we all battle our misdirected passions that can lead to disaster in our lives. If only we could be as wise as Tamar when she tried to reason with Amnon about his lustful desire for sex. And that's what I want to focus on for the remaining couple of minutes. So in chapter 13, you'll see that she appealed to Amnon with four different reasons why he should not rape her. Um, Amnon's planned his attack, interestingly enough, with the help and advice of one of David's brothers. Just in case you were wondering what became of his brothers, one of them at least wasn't particularly loyal to his brother, the king. So now Tamar sees what's about to happen and she tries to reason with Amnon. The first thing she says is that it is an utterly deplorable act in Israel because it violates the law of God, which you can read in Leviticus 18:11. She knew it would bring disharmony and bloodshed to the king's family. So her first concern is being loyal to God and loyal to her family and her concern about the well-being of her family. And then Tamar appeals to what should be Amnon's concern for her, as she would be considered a fornicator and scorned as an object of reproach. And that's sad, even though she was resistant to the crime that was perpetrated against her, she knew she would bear the stigma of one who had been defiled. And then she reminds Amnon, maybe appealing to his selfishness, that he would be considered a wicked fool, a God rejecting man who didn't have any principles, who offended ordinary standards of morality, thereby actually jeopardizing his right to the throne. He was closer in line to the throne than his brother Absalom. And then finally, I think out of desperation, Tamar appeals to Amnon's physical desire and suggests that he simply ask for her in marriage. Um, she probably knew that marriage between half siblings was not allowed by Mosaic law, but I think it was a desperate move to escape her immediate situation. Sadly, she was correct on all accounts. So, what do we see here in this contrast between Tamar, who is the rational, honest, faithful, loyal, law abiding king's daughter, and then Amnon, who is none of those things and only wants his sexual desire satisfied, no matter the consequences. She might have added that one of her brothers will probably kill him, which did happen, even though it took a couple of years to come about. That's exactly what happened. So it's interesting, these very actions and consequences are one of the reasons why the Apostle Paul admonishes believers in Colossians to set their minds on the things above, not on the things of earth, and includes a list of specific things to avoid, most of which we see in this account of the troubles of the family of King David. And then later in Paul's letter to the Ephesians, he offers specifics about the opposite positive and godly things upon which to focus, telling us to meditate on these things, whatever is true, whatever is noble, just, pure, lovely, whatever is good news, whatever is virtuous, and anything that's praiseworthy. Get focused on those things every day. So let me finish with a simple application. There are a lot of jokes today made about the Hallmark Channel and its sappy and one-track storylines, its seeming use of the same soundtrack for every single movie, and the questionable quality of its actors and actresses. Yet, if one has to watch TV, you might want to stick with Hallmark and avoid the likes of Lifetime Movie Network. Comparatively speaking, Hallmark is clearly about things that are above, and LMN is all about the things that are below. Now, maybe there's hope for the world because the Hallmark Channel consistently draws significantly higher viewer numbers than the Lifetime Movie Network. 812,000 viewers on a typical day compared to 340,000 for a Lifetime. And there's even now a great American family network, providing more family-oriented programming instead of the LMN network. Okay, enough TV Guide article news. Suffice to say, in response to chapters 13 through 15, it might be good to begin the day with a very simple and practical prayer. Oh Lord, help me be about the things that are above today as I move about the earth below. Amen. All right, God bless you all. Take care.